Now, first I'm going to talk about the main point. The main point in this debate is peace, and this was analysed and talked about by Ruth. Now I'm going to talk. The EU started with the European steel and coal community in 1950. Now, there's a very important quote I'd like to talk about, and this is a quote from Robert Schuman on the 9th of May, 1951. This quote is, "The EU was created not to make war not only unthinkable, but impossible. The EU has managed to create Europe. Europe is a continent that has been known, that has been savaged with war in history. Europe has been filled up with war, and in these past 50 years, there has been no war between these states. Now, yes, there has been civil wars that have broken through, but these civil wars hasn't been as big or as large scale compared to the world wars or prior wars, and I believe that the fact that we haven't been into a large, major, grand scale war is a great achievement. This means that there's a lack of This means that a lot of people are not in wars and that there are less casualties and things going on. Do you not agree?"
I'm just going to highlight, it's maybe not the fact that we've had a war, but if we're going to be compassionate human beings, we need to look at actually the fact that we haven't intervened in like examples being Bosnia, being Rwanda, being Chile, which was majorly funded by the capitalist regimes which have been implemented through the EU.
Thank you. Now,
that's more important.
Thank you. Now, thank you.
Order.
And I do not believe that war is a good thing. I believe that the EU has benefits, and these benefits outweigh the negatives and the flaws. And yes, there are bad things, and yes, that war is a bad thing, and I didn't choose to go in that war, and I am against it. Anyway, I'm going to talk about what has happened in this debate and why us in the opposition are the winners and why we must stay in the EU. Now, firstly, we've been talking about free trade and its benefits. Now, if we weren't in the EU, what would happen? Now, let's look at trade in other countries. Now, if we had to trade with other countries that aren't in the EU, there are many acts, there are many laws that we have to go through, and these laws and acts can create taxes on our goods. If I wanted to sell goods, let's say I'm a farmer in London, and I want to sell my goods or my industry or my software or whoever I am, whatever I might do it, I want to sell my goods to other people in the world. If I go to other countries that are outside the EU, there will be taxes on this. There will be things that go against it. They may be against it and the countries may stop it, and this may stop my welfare and me. Now, this is a terrible thing. However, in the EU, it influences trade. It influences the stability of trade and helps companies keep on going and funding companies. And this is why the EU is important. Now, what I've noticed is that a lot of people in the debate, mainly today, keep on talking about how the EU is a drain on our economy and how we have spent £100 billion in the EU. But there are a lot of things which are also a drain in our economy, which we should stop. The war in Iraq has been over £5 billion each annual year, and it is estimated to be 15 years long, and that will be £75 billion in 15 years, which is nearly as much as £100 billion in Europe, which has nearly been over 50 years. Now, I believe that there are many mediums that we are losing money, and the EU is not a waste of money. The EU is not a sinkhole where we put our money in and it drops out. The EU is a pool of money where we put our money in and we get benefits from that money. From the EU, over 86% of the money we have put in the EU has created services and advantages which help us. This money has not been spent for petty reasons or just for the EU's way. This money has been spent to help us. Now, I'm going to talk about students. Now, students living here. Now, we are all students, and I'd like to beg you to remember that being a part of an EU allows you to go into any country, allows you to study there, allows you to live there, allows you to get a job there, and allows you to live your life. Now, without the EU, you wouldn't have this. Now, I would like to remind you that the EU is important. The EU is something we should all be proud to be, and I would like to remind you that we are all European. Thank you.